In the previous video, I spoke a bit about my father's beatings, about the way he physically abused the family, and I now want to talk about a form of psychological abuse he used that's very, very close to beatings, which is threats of violence and other kinds of threats and intimidation. I'm sure a lot of people have been intimidated or threatened by others, and it's something that is quite easy to relate to. Now, my father, when I was very little, had this habit of saying once, twice, 3 times, and he would say that very, very loudly, in a very domineering attitude. When he said it, as soon as he said times, he would come over to me and start beating me up. And that pretty much meant that as soon as he said once, he wanted me to comply with whatever he asked. He didn't do this, I think, after I'd gone to school, but I do recall several instances when he did say that, and it was extremely loud for a child my age, and it was extremely painful and frightening. He did also have this very, very strange thing that, to my understanding, narcissistic parents have, which is he would first ask me for something, ask me to do something, for example, and he would then politely request that I do that. Then he would beg me or complain to me or go, "Oh, why aren't you doing this?" And afterwards, if he saw that that didn't work, he would threaten me with violence, and then he would physically attack me, or he would sulk and threaten me or complain some more. So I immediately came to associate his being polite when asking for something to being a complete scumbag. And it just goes to show how he tried flipping through various techniques in order to see which ones worked and which ones didn't, as opposed to actually being concerned about my personality, about what I wanted. He was just looking for a particular response. He was looking to push buttons. He threatened me over some very trivial things. To give an example, when I was fairly young, I believe in school, I decided with my brother to watch a film called The House of the Dead in our room with an old black and white television set. And my father came in, he saw that we were staying up late watching television, and he got really angry at that and started threatening us, and he took away our television set. My mother was with him in the room at the time, and she joined in on his complaints. Neither of them ever pointed out that anything was wrong with what we did, and of course nothing was wrong with what we did. We were just staying up late to watch a film. And the way my mother behaved, even though she herself was a victim of abuse, reminded me of a psychopath's spouse. The psychopath in question is Sam Vaknin, I, Psychopath, in the film I, Psychopath. This woman called Nina, she was with him when a psychologist presented to him the psychopathy checklist by Robert Hare, and this checklist pointed out that he was a psychopath. So naturally Sam Vaknin got quite upset with that and said, well, he just took it as an opportunity to go into a tirade, and he went into a tirade. So this woman joined in. As soon as he stopped talking, as soon as he stopped with the complaints, she brought in new ones or just repeated the ones that he had made. It's just bizarre that my mother behaved very, very similarly to this woman. That's an anecdote. Another one is when I was older, when I was 15 or 16 in high school, and I decided to stay up late on the computer, well, actually to sneak to the computer and start reading some Nietzsche. I wanted to read Nietzsche because I just gotten a glimpse of him in high school, and he sounded as though he was very tormented and frustrated with the world. Certainly I was. At the same time, he spoke about inferior people, and personally I knew a lot of them, as in my father was one, um, and I met a lot of other abusive people, and to be honest, I also feel that people who just turn a blind eye to abuse aren't very good people generally. But later I later became disenchanted with Nietzsche as well, because his notion of superiority don't involve morality so much as excellence, and I kind of disagree with that. But to get back to the main point of this, I was reading Nietzsche, and my father came over. He noticed that I was there, staying up late reading Nietzsche, and he came over to me and he started threatening to kill me. Just saying, I'm going to kill you several times, and coming into my face. That's what he did. My mother was also nearby. She came with him. She didn't say anything. And I don't remember the outcome of that. I know that he didn't beat me up at all. But it was quite an unpleasant experience. I remember how later he didn't really do this sort of thing. He didn't threaten with violence so much as threatening to leave us, threatening to cut off our supply of money. But he did do one thing. When I was 16, 17 or so, he misplaced his CD with Civilization 3, which was one of the games he really loved. He loved being, or considering himself an emperor, even though he tended to play at chieftain level. That's at the lowest difficulty levels possible, so he would always win. And he always refused to play multiplayer because he might lose to me, for example. So he came over to me because he had misplaced his CD and threatened me and claimed that I had taken away his CD in order to make him unhappy. I don't think he actually believed that. I honestly don't. I think he was just taking an opportunity to, well, try and bully me, and I just stood my ground. I said that I didn't know where his CD was, and he complained some more, and he just left. And that was it. I know he threatened my mother a lot. He certainly did. There's leaving her in the streets, telling her that she was absolutely worthless and she would starve to death if he left her. It's a tactic that abusers often use to keep their spouses with them. I just wish she had understood that this was not the case, that she would have very, very easily left. And, well, I wish I would have known more about the topic at the time. I wish that more would have been written on the internet, and at the same time I wish I would have had the strength of character, I guess, back then to read about that, but I'm not sure why I didn't. I know he later, when she became schizophrenic, threatened to hit her or to call an ambulance and get her to the mental hospital. Basically threatened to imprison her, in other words, because mental hospitals really are nothing more than prisons. If she didn't stop talking to herself. So it was a very perverse thing, partly because in Romanian the word for ambulance is salvare, and that can be translated as salvation. So saying that he would call the salvation to get her locked up, that was a very Orwellian thing, very disgusting thing for him to do. That's it in terms of the threats. In the next video I'm going to be talking about other forms of intimidation he used, and then move on to some more insidious means of abuse.